And welcome back. We have Randy with us. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you, Juliet. Happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk about this today because you and I had a discussion, I think, on a Saturday afternoon, unexpectedly, about there seems to be a lot of confusion about how to get a traditional contract these days, what's going on, and then also what people are actually signing in self-publishing contracts, which I want to really talk about. That's blowing me away as well. So tell us a little bit about what's going on in the marketplace with traditional publishers and what is it that you really need? Because there's this ongoing back and forth between the whole book needs to be written. I need a platform. I need a proposal. I need one chapter. I need, like, nobody really knows.
Well, actually, I do know.
Okay, somebody knows.
So I'm very, very happy to share. I still, in this COVID pandemic time, I still get lots of people book deals. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, I was pitching a nonfiction manuscript to 10 publishers. And the same day I pitched it, 2 publishers got back to me saying, yes, I'm considering. The next day, a 3rd publisher, yes, I'm considering. Within a week, a 4th publisher passed on it. And then a 5th publisher just came in, and it's less than a week saying, I want to set up a meeting with the author. So you can't tell me that, and these are first-time authors, so you can't tell me that book deals aren't happening because I make them happen consistently. Mm-hmm. And so recently I sold a memoir, got actually a $30,000 advance. I placed it with the right agent who did that. And again, memoir can be a difficult category, but don't be persuaded by what you hear, any negativity you're hearing out there, because there are plenty of manuscripts being published, and I'm one of the people that helps get them there.
Right.
So we ask a lot of questions. I tell people there's 2 parts to getting a book deal with a traditional publisher. There's 2 parts of the conversation. And the first part is about your content, obviously. They have to love your content. They have to feel there's a strong enough market for it. And critically, you have to be differentiated. That means you're not spitting out quotes from other authors. You're not recycling their quotes or whatever, or referencing them in your books as much as possible. They want to hear your thoughts, your new thought. What are you bringing to the conversation that's new, vital information that you have that you could bring forth in your unique way of expressing it? That's really important. Mm-hmm. So that's the first part. Do you have very unique differentiation? So the second part of the conversation is purely a business-sided conversation. And from the business side of publishing, you must meet certain metrics, certain numbers. So for example, I'm on a Zoom call and I'm pitching this one acquisitions editor. These are the people who acquire the projects. I'm pitching her 9 projects. And because we're on Zoom, I can watch her. She has a big side monitor. And so I would present one project to her verbally. She has it in writing as well. I've sent the appropriate materials, but I'm pitching verbally at this point. And I see her on her side monitor, and she's looking up, the people. She goes, Facebook, not enough engagement. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this with so many agents. I was sitting with Angelina Jolie's literary agent. This is pre-COVID, pitching him at a Starbucks table at the Javits Conference Center during one of the big publishing industry feeding frenzies, giant book expo in New York. And he pulled out his phone while I'm pitching him, and I see him looking down, not looking at me while I'm speaking. And in my mind, I'm thinking, God, that's rude. I'm busy judging the guy. But no, he was looking at my author on YouTube, and it said, oh no, numbers are way too small. Click.
Yeah.
End of conversation. So engagement's really, really important. Wherever you're going to position yourself, if you've got a podcast, grow those downloads like crazy. And so I also want to share with you like where your numbers need to be.
Oh.
And I'm going to share this by example.
Okay.
I had a book that came out actually in 2021 called The Prepared Investor. So it came out in February of 2021. So I'm pitching it back in 1919. And the author had 2 LinkedIn profiles. Now, this is 2019. It's pre-COVID again. I'm in New York. I'm pitching live. 25 meetings in 2.5 days. That's a lot of meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had 22 meetings with publishers and 3 with top literary agents, pitching 16 projects. So, this is my fun. I'm in my playground, just in my lane. And so I'm pitching this book, The Prepared Investor. And when I pitched it now, 3 top literary agents, 2 of them have done 6-figure deals for my clients, but they're all really, really strong. And 2 of them have also done movie deals. Very, very strong agents, all separate meetings. And I heard the exact same words come out of those agents' mouths when I was pitching Chris Mansky's The Prepared Investor. I mean, fortunately, I did sell the book. And on my backdrop here, it's kind of near my head, The Prepared Investor. Now, Chris had 2 LinkedIn profiles, and clearly his demographic is LinkedIn. He's dealing with professionals. So you have to know, one, where is your demographic? Yeah. Where are they online? That's critical. Are your people on TikTok, on Instagram? Where are they? Wherever they are. If they're a business book in the professional world, you better be on LinkedIn. Yep. So here I am pitching his book. And I tell these agents, he has 2 LinkedIn profiles. He has 10,000 people on his business profile on LinkedIn. He has 1,000 people on his personal profile. And those 3 agents, completely separate meetings, all said the exact same sentences. They said, delete 1,000. Those numbers are too small.
Yeah.
None of them would touch it. I eventually did sell the book, based on his 10,000. And I tell people that's a minimum number. 10,000 followers, people. The more you can show people engaging, that's how you get book deals with traditional publishers. And it's just really critical to the sale. If you don't have to have it, you have to be strong somewhere. And let me tell you the number of books that publishers want to buy. They want to sell each year, because this will give you an idea of where your numbers need to be. So, for example, a mid-range publisher wants to sell 3,500 to 5,000 books in the first year. Where do your numbers have to be for them to justify taking your book? Mm-hmm. So the higher you can get your numbers, the better. So 3,500 to 5,000, that's mid-range publisher. Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House, they want to sell 10,000 books in the first year. Uh-huh. Where do your numbers need to be to justify them offering you a contract?
Yeah. And this is why engagement is so important. One of my authors, well, she's not my author, but she started out as an author the same time I did, developed a list strategy. She always had about 25,000 people on her list. But if you didn't engage with those emails within 30 days, you were deleted. So every time she made a USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and she eventually became a New York Times bestseller, she had a list of 25,000 people who were engaged. They were opening, they were buying. And those are the kinds of numbers, like it would be a little bit harder to show to a traditional publisher, but those are the kinds of things why engagement's important, because you can have, 25,000 crappy followers who don't do anything, but that's not really going to propel book sales, right? Right, Randy?
That's true. And in fact, I want to give you some strategies. One of the few workarounds that I know, because I did this for some authors. They had about 20,000 people on their list, which is, that's good for a mid-range publisher.
Yeah. But
they did something really unique that I think everyone has the capacity to do, even if you don't have 20,000 people. They did a GoFundMe. And so this was an author and an artist of an Oracle deck. And they pre-sold 450 decks. Now they're from an indigenous tribe in Canada that's never been represented in print. So again, unique differentiation. Mm-hmm. Whatever, if you're working on, for example, whatever your project is, Oracle deck or not, do you have that unique differentiation? So I figured, I want to take this project to Hay House. Hay House is the largest mind, body, spirit publisher in the world that I know of. But I also know, because I've sat in the office of the VP publisher in New York, I also know what she looks for. So what Hay House looks for, and by the way, I'm interrupting myself, but every mind, body, spirit author will come to me saying, can you get me Hay House?
Exactly.
Well, let me tell you what Hay House wants, because I know their exact numbers. So their VP publisher in New York, I'm sitting in her office again, pre-COVID, and she told me, we look for authors who have a mailing list of 100,000 people And
Wow.
we examine the open rate on that email, which is exactly what you were saying, Juliet. It's not just about having the followers. Now, why is the mailing list critical to them? I'll tell you. It's because they say your mailing list is the only thing you have control over that is not ruled by an algorithm.
Yes.
So it's critical. Now, my
Yes.
author and her artist from this indigenous tribe in Canada for this Oracle book, they didn't have 100,000 people. They still had a good sized list, 20,000, but they had pre-sold 450 decks. So I have this little joke. I say to myself, what the hey house? I'm going to pitch it. I'm going to pitch it. The most they can do is say no. But this is what happened. I pitched that project with the book proposal, and I know we're going to be speaking about book proposals shortly. So I'll just say I pitched it with the book proposal, on which I had polished. Everything was just really ready to go. I pitched it to that VP publisher, New York, at 9 a.m. on a Thursday. At 9:20, I got an email back just 20 minutes later saying, this project looks stunning. Let me do a deeper dive into the proposal. I will get back to you. That's Thursday. Friday morning, there's a message waiting for me in my inbox from her acquisitions editor saying, I want to meet with the artist and the author on Monday. So we had that meeting on Monday. And so they didn't have, again, 100,000 followers or 100,000 on an email list, but I was still able to get that door open. Mm-hmm. Now, Hay House did pass on the project, but we were kind of relieved because right now Hay House is a 3-year production cycle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I actually did sell the project very quickly elsewhere, and it's actually coming out in June of 2022. So, very, very different. And, the artist and the author, this is just an aside, but it's something people, I think, would appreciate knowing. Because of the supply chain issues, the publisher that I sold it to wanted to get it out in time for Earth Day in April, except because of the supply chain issues around paper, and because it's an Oracle deck and it's color printing, they couldn't do it. They just couldn't. So now, with fingers crossed, they're holding for a June 2022 release date.
Yeah, that is so crazy with that weight. But I do want to just mention something here, because we hear this all the time with the self-publishing. We will hear people say, we're thinking about going with Balboa because it's part of Hay House. It's not the same thing, you guys. Not the same thing at all. So don't get sucked into that. Okay, I self-published with Balboa, so now Hay House will look at my book. It's not going to happen. So I just always cringe when I hear that, because it's not the way it works with it. Okay, so let's jump into proposals.
Sure.
Within a span of 2 days, I had someone who we've signed now, who there are a lot of book developers out there. A lot of people saying they are book developers and they know how to get your book consumed by an agent. But so the first one that came in, we've actually taken on her book, but she wrote the entire book, spent an enormous amount of money. The proposal is actually beautiful, but by the time the book was done, the market was saturated with women's stories. So I think on some level, if this had actually been something that had been pitched 3 years ago when she started, or 2 years ago when she started, the market wouldn't have been as saturated. The next day I talked to someone who has a really good chance of getting a traditional publishing contract, because she does have something unique. She founded something unique, but her guy was telling her that she needed to go back and rewrite the book a different way, which didn't make any sense to us because she's a history buff. So it was chronologically written, which really makes sense. So, hers was already written, but he didn't want to write that proposal yet because he didn't like the way the book was written. So where is the balance here? And where is that point where you actually send that proposal off to someone?
So I'll share with you, I wrote a book proposal that got a $125,000 book deal in a bidding war between 9 publishers, and Simon & Schuster took the book. Nice. Thank you. I am a master of the proposal. There are many different ways to write proposals, but the way that I do it, frankly, allows me to sell a lot of books. And I primarily work with first-time authors. So, I'll just share with you the process that we do. And so
Okay.
typically, let's say somebody's written a manuscript, because we've also ghostwritten books that have gotten six-figure deals as well.
Mhm.
But let's say somebody's written their manuscript. So the first thing we do is to provide a bid to read it and analyze it. Use the comments bar in Word and point out anything that the author needs to strengthen that we see. And in that first round, we're also discerning, is this a book we actually think a publisher is going to buy?
Right.
So it used to be, write a proposal, a strong proposal, and submit with sample chapters. Back in January of 2020 or 2021. Well, anyway, long time ago, I had an agent tell me that publishers now want to see at least 50% of a manuscript because it's harder to get a book deal. It is actually my preference in most cases to pitch when the manuscript is completely, we've edited it, it is polished, it is ready to go. The book proposal, everything is absolutely ready to go. Why? Because the competition is so high. Let's say a publisher has 25 spaces for that quarter or that half year, depending. I'm just making up a number at random. They have 25 spaces, but they have 70 books that they're considering. And let's say 50 of those books are ready to go. Do you really have a chance compared with all these other people when their books are ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
And so because everyone on my team, because I have a team of editors and ghostwriters who work for me, and my criteria is so high. They had to have worked directly for these traditional publishers or have edited many books that have sold to traditional publishers. So it's like, yes, we're meeting publishing industry standards with the editing, but we also have a very clear understanding, a very good understanding as to what publishers are going to buy. You can write the best book in the world, but if nobody's going to touch it, oh well. So for example, this past year, one of my authors, the book was pitched on sample chapters and he got a $30,000 book deal. Why? He was one of the founders of anime. So the man has a huge track record, a huge following, is loved everywhere in that industry. I barely know what anime is, but
something my kids look at. That's all I know.
Right. But I found the agent who secured the publisher where the acquisitions editor loves anime. That's her favorite thing. It's like perfect. And so that $30,000 advance that this gentleman got pre-COVID would have probably been easily a six-figure deal. But in COVID times, advances are coming way down. So, where I'd like to actually bring the conversation next is that I really like self-publishing and traditional publishing for different reasons. And before we even get into the proposal, I'd like to share the difference. I've done both with my own books, with different books I've written, and I like both for different reasons. And I always tell people, I'm not attached as to which way you want to go. I just want what's highest and best for you, depending on your goals. Right. So I just very briefly can share about that. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's okay, great. Because you and I actually, when I was writing Pitch Slapped, we actually talked a little bit about you. You thought you could get a deal. And I thought it was in my highest and best to stay with self-publishing.
Sure.
And also setting an example. It's awful if I have a self-publishing, which we're now a hybrid company, but if I'm telling people, self-publish, but I went the traditional route. So right. I love that you're going to address this because that was one of my considerations.
And again, I'm speaking in very general terms. So generally speaking, and I'm qualifying it like that, if you want to make more money per book, self-publish.
Yes.
If you want to get a book out quickly, self-publish. If you want control over every aspect of your book, your cover design, your interior text, everything, self-publish. If you are using your book for your career, I highly recommend traditional publishing. Why? The doors that can open for you are amazing. Like my first time authors in Oprah magazine, in Time magazine, in FedEx office stores across the country, books sold in bulk. I mean, and let's see, where else? Airport bookstores, first-time authors. It's like, so if you're looking to grow your career, get on corporate stages or into larger venues, larger speaking, things like that, larger media, I tell people definitely try through a traditional publisher. So for example, my own first book, Crappy Too Happy. I'm sitting in a movie theater and there's Julia Roberts all of a sudden holding up my Crappy to Happy book in a bookstore scene. I had no idea I was going to be in a movie. No, I'm just sitting in the movie, opening night of Eat, Pray, Love. There she is. Oh my God, blown away. things you can't even begin to predict.
Yeah.
My authors on various, like, Wall Street Journal bestsellers and things like that. Typically, or like I had a book just last year, Cosmo calling number 17 best nonfiction book 2020. Things like that. Those opportunities typically happen when a book comes out through a traditional publisher.
Right. That's so interesting too, because most of what we handle are entrepreneurs who we use that book as a nurture space. So there's a little bit, when you talk career, you're talking about someone who maybe is in corporate America or going that route. Ours is more those solo entrepreneurs. Yeah. So it is. Interesting. So you guys, now and you heard Hay House 3-year production wait. So, will your book still be around? We had someone who hired us last week who actually said, I'd love to go traditional, but I'm 64 years old and I don't even know that I'll be here in 2 years. So I know. My God. I mean, it was hard, but if you think about it, like, let's maximize this now. So, some of those considerations. So let's talk about that. I think you pretty much outlined that proposal pretty well about what do you want to do a proposal? What does that weight look like? What is all that? And who's pitching it? Because pitching it yourself probably isn't going to get you much traction, is it?
I'm a master of the pitch. I love to pitch. This is my fun. It's my playground. It's my lane. And frankly, like I have a book coming out in October of 2022 on skincare. I've got, what else do I have? I mentioned the Oracle deck. I pitched that manuscript 2 weeks ago on emotions that has, 10 to 10 publishers with, the author already in a conversation. So I absolutely love to get people book deals. So the way I pitch is that I pitch via email and I forward all correspondence so that everyone knows, like, who's considering the project, any feedback we're getting, they're always in the loop. They always see where it's at. So for example, business books are typically the easiest books for me to sell. And it's often the case that I get more than one publisher interested. So for example, with Power Your Profits, this one book, first McGraw-Hill came in and they offered an advance slightly under $20,000. And Simon & Schuster came in. I'm going, bidding war. And so I sent an email to one of the agents, the top agents I deal with, and I didn't write an email. I just wrote a subject line, Linda, can you conduct this bidding war? The next thing you know, we have 9 publishers involved and a $125,000 book deal.
Nice.
So, and I have a book off on the side here to me called Great Mondays. So Great Mondays, that's a book on company culture. 4 publishers, McGraw-Hill did publish that book, but 4 publishers offered deals on that book.
Right.
So a lot of times there was, about 3 years ago, I was pitching 8 projects in July. Everything's ready to go. Book proposals are ready to go. And it just happened, 8 of them in July, different nonprofit. So I pitch a lot of business, mind, body, spirit, self-help, personal growth, those categories, some memoir. I actually have 3 fiction. I have 2 thrillers and a women's fiction under contract with different agents. A couple of those agents also sell to film. So anyway, just this wide range of books. So here I was pitching 8 different projects in July. In October, and again, that was a 4-month span, 7 of them were offered book deals in October, 7 out of 8. And the 8th, an acquisitions editor loved, but when she brought it to her team, the team said, this is too advertorial. It's too self-promotional. If the author rewrites, we will reconsider. So 7 out of 8, bam, right off the bat, got book deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty incredible.
It is incredible. By the way, the ghostwriting on this, if you look down in that right-hand corner, if you're actually on YouTube watching this, Soul Memories, her group wrote this book. Ghost wrote it for our client, Bonnie Darby. And it's a beautiful, beautifully written book. So, I can vouch. Yeah. I can vouch for those ghostwriting skills as well. So let's shift over to what I'm seeing contracts in the self-publishing world. Okay. Because I have seen the most crazy contracts in the last 6 months. We always offer that if you have a competitor's contract, we're happy to look at it and actually explain what you're seeing, because we find that so many of these companies just hand it to them and say, well, this is standard, and they don't really explain. So authors aren't aware of what they're getting into. So I'll give you a great example right off the top. We just looked at one 2 weeks ago, and this young lady has gotten her rights back, by the way, where it's self-publishing, and the self-publisher has taken her digital and print rights. Now, that should never happen with a self-published book, right?
Yeah. So what I tell people is I am not a legal beagle, but I do have an attorney who we know in common who wrote a book on copyrights.
Yes.
And I refer anybody to her, for contract review. And I don't care how famous the company is. I highly recommend a review for any contract at all. One of the hidden things in contracts, that I'll share, that a very dear friend of mine, she published with, a self-publishing company. She paid, for a certain amount. And then after some years, they weren't doing anything with her book anymore. And they actually didn't do what they had promised they were going to do to begin with, but it's another story. So she wanted her files back for her books, and she wanted to take it locally to somebody in her area near Santa Cruz.
Right.
Okay. And so the publisher had sold his company to these two women. But what it said in her original contract was that they owned the license. Which is licensing, which is different than just publishing the book. And so these women wanted $2,500 to give her the license to hand that over so she could publish her book. And she said, I only have $250, so they took it.
See,
but it's like, oh my God.
That should never, ever happen.
Scammy, yeah.
It really was. The other thing we saw recently too was that if you signed the contract, and these guys were Amazon white glove, which means you're not anywhere but Amazon, supposedly. They brought me the contract and said, am I reading this right? And I refer them to attorneys as well. I just kind of go through and explain what these things mean that are sucking up the money before they go to their attorney. And it actually said that they got 30% of all of your online sales. So my client, and she ended up being my client, was a coach. And I said, how much do you make online sales a year? And she's like, about 250,000. I'm like, do you really want to give these people $80,000 to publish your book? That is absolutely insane, besides paying them. So I think the point I'm getting to you guys is, number one, you are paying these people to publish your book. So them keeping rights, taking a part of your income, doing any of this stuff is absolutely insane. It would be like going to, I know Kinko's is out of business, but let's say Office Depot and saying, hey, will you design my business card? And I'd like to order 100. And then they give them back to you and they go, oh, by the way, Randy, we get 50% of anything you sell with those. You would immediately say no, but that's what most of these people are actually doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. Other things we're seeing, and I don't know, how much do you deal with audiobooks? Do you do that much at all?
I have a wonderful referral partner for audiobooks. Just wonderful.
Too. Yeah.
So I just refer people because it's not what I do.
Okay. So we're seeing a lot of this in the contract where they're saying, go have your audiobook produced, bring it back to us and we'll upload it, which, let me translate that for you guys. You're going to spend $3,000 to $5,000 to produce the audiobook. More than likely that audio producer will have the ability to upload it to all those platforms. But when you bring it back to this person, they were charging $700 and then they got to keep 65% of net or 35% of net. So you guys have to be really careful about stuff like that in the contracts. Are you giving them exclusivity on something that they don't necessarily deserve exclusivity? So, it's really good to get in there. I mean, with the traditional, you understand it because you're giving away, they're doing all the work for you, but that's not the same in the self-publishing or the hybrid space on it.
Right.
So where can we find you if we'd like to have something looked at and pitched? And I know you have a grueling process you go through. You don't take
Grueling. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's
Grueling.
pretty,
Oh my God. No, it's actually fun.
it's substantial. You don't
Yeah.
pay a fee and then you'll take any book.
No.
There's criteria. And so
Right.
where can we find
Process.
you? Yeah.
Yes.
If
So
somebody would like to do that.
author1stop.com, just use my contact button, get in touch with me. It's so easy. author1stop.com, and the one is spelled out ONE, author one stop.
Great. Thank you
That's
so much.
easy.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. This was really great.
You're very welcome.